Welcome to Glowing Success. My name is Heidi and I am your host. This podcast is for beauty entrepreneurs. Join me weekly as we dive into the beauty industry's ins and outs, from business strategies, top-selling services, and taboo topics. I will be interviewing industry leaders with empowering stories and game-changing insights. Let's illuminate your path to success together. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. Today I want to talk about how a morning meeting or a coffee meeting or a networking type breakfast changed how I look at talking about my business. So you probably, if you've been tuning in for a while and looking at all my content, you know that I love in-person marketing. That is probably one of my favorite ways to market. I think it gives you the best and fastest return. And I'm not saying social media marketing and other marketing isn't as efficient. It can be. But when it comes to an overall reach, I think in-person efforts tend to give you the best return. Anyway, so I want to share a little bit about, like, when I first started my business, I was doing everything. So I tried it all. I have done, direct mail. So like not direct mail, but flyer delivery. So I made a flyer up and I delivered it myself, actually. I did a lot of networking events. So one of the things that I did was I looked up online any networking event that I could go to. One of the things that I highly suggest going to is like your Chamber of Commerce. So every city has a Chamber of Commerce. Most cities, I should say. I don't know about every city now that I say that, but most cities have a Chamber of Commerce. And what they do is they usually have a breakfast. And so you can get invited as a guest to this breakfast. And basically, it's just a good way for you to meet other local businesses that are part of that chamber, number one. But also part of it is it taught me like about my elevator pitch. So this is something that I think is really good for every business owner to kind of tackle down and get good at. But basically, your elevator pitch is something like a 2-sentence, 1-sentence way to describe what you do. So when you're meeting somebody, you're not jumbling over your words, you're not kind of word vomiting, you're not kind of sharing too much or sharing not enough or sharing not the right information. So at these Chamber of Commerce breakfasts, they usually have like that you introduce yourself. So you get be really good about talking about what you do, who you are, and things like that. So I will say, if you're kind of in the beginning stages and you're still tripping up about how to introduce yourself, or what is a quick way to describe what you do or how to attract that ideal client, this might be a good exercise, because they kind of, at this breakfast anyway, they showed me how to do it. They were like, hey, here goes how to do your elevator pitch. And maybe this was just the one I joined. I don't know. Maybe they do this every time. I didn't end up joining that chamber, so I didn't end up going to any other breakfast after that or any other meetings. But I will say, like, it was a really interesting time, because not only did they show me how to kind of make my elevator pitch or what to do and what to say, but they really were encouraging, and I met a lot of great people. But I will say, when you're networking, especially in person, it is really good to have something quick that comes off your tongue, right? Because you don't want to, like I said, don't want to be jumbling, because just like your clients in your room, you only have that first impression, right? We only have these first impressions to go off of. And so if you meet somebody, let's say you were in a situation and somebody is jumbling over their words and kind of trying to find the words of what to say, of what they do and so forth, you're probably going to look at that person like they're not as confident. Or maybe they're really nervous and you're like, why are you nervous right now? Or why are they tripping over the words? They should be really excited about what they do and how they do it. Like, it does not give off that confidence that you really need to be conveying to people, especially if you're trying to get clients from these interactions, right? And usually we are. And so, this is something to work on. So what I suggest is coming up with, so first of all, who do you want to attract? I mean, I've talked about this a lot in different episodes of who your ideal client is, and actually I have a amazing course coming out soon of how to attract your ideal client, so stay tuned on that one. But it's really all about attracting that ideal client, right? And so a lot of it narrows down to like, what are you specializing in? What are you good at? What are you known for? And who you're trying to attract. So it doesn't necessarily need to be as simple as like, I want to bring in more lash extension clients. No, you really want to think about maybe what your service does for that client. So I help my clients achieve wonderful looks and easy mornings with lash extensions. And that's not the best example, but so you can kind of play with this. So you need to make it your own. You need to make it unique, right? My coaching one would be, I help beauty professionals attract their ideal clients and feel confident in their marketing efforts. So for me, that would be a good way for me to describe what I do, and gives that listener an idea of like, okay, wow, this is the end result of what she wants to get for her clients. Because people are going to be listening to that more than they're actually listening to, I offer facials. Right? So if this is resonating, hopefully it is, you can start working on that quote unquote elevator pitch, or start working on that quick, explanation of what you do, because you will never know where you're going to pick up a client until all of a sudden you're in these situations. I mean, I've had people ask for my card at gas stations. I've had random like friends' birthday parties that I didn't know I was going to give out a card at. Like, you just never know when somebody's going to be interested in what you do, or what conversation is going to arise in whatever you are in. So coming up with this and having this, and practicing it is a really good idea, because you are going to come off more confident, which is going to attract more clients. But also, doing this, it could also kind of give you that confidence of like, this is actually the direction I want to go, or I have been thinking about this for a while. Because if you are toying around with a couple different specialties, let's say you're multifaceted, which many beauty professionals are, but we all kind of narrow in a couple services that we like to we're good at, we're known for, we love, so forth. So this might help you narrow that down. So if you're in the process of like saying, I have all these different services I love everything, it's hard because you're not going to catch everything, right? If you're speaking to everyone, you're going to attract no one. So you need to narrow down eventually. You need to specialize, so to speak. You need to be an expert in something. And so this will help you do that as well, because you can kind of go through that conversation of, I just offer beauty services. And I've talked about this too, like in your marketing, you really need to narrow in and talk to that specific person and talk to what you're going to do for them. So, this is really going to be helpful. So what I like to do when I'm kind of coming up with things or trying to play around with things or learning something new is I like to do brain dumping. So you just write down whatever comes to your brain when it comes to this topic, or when you're thinking about this topic or so forth. Just put it down either on paper or however you like to write your notes. And I find that is really helpful with getting it out, right? Getting it out of the brain, and we can start organizing after that. Or one thing that's really helped is writing sentences out. So if you're kind of playing around with the verbiage and you already kind of have an idea, but you're kind of close, but you're like, oh, I'm not quite there yet of how I like to say it, just keep on writing it out. Another thing is using AI. A lot of people like to use AI now. So hop on ChatGPT or anything that you use for AI. That might be able to help you out of how to narrow down, what you do and who you want to attract. But this is a good idea, you guys. It is definitely something that if you can perfect it, or at least get it to a place where you're comfortable, you will definitely be having more conversations in these networking events. And also, you'll just be ready if you meet somebody on the street or in a quick moment. But one thing, highly suggest looking for networking events in your area, because this is something that's underutilized, but I find that I've found the best clients and best relationships, and sometimes business relationships from them. So go on Eventbrite, go on Facebook groups, go on anywhere that you can find where networking events are happening in your area. And I highly suggest at least going to a couple and getting your feet wet and trying out these new things, and you can see how it works. And I bet you will be getting some new clients. So, all right. Well, thank you for listening today, and see you next week. I hope you liked that episode and found something useful or a tip that you can use immediately. If you are wanting more marketing tips, business tips, or anything like that, I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have PDFs that you can download for free. So look in your show notes. There should be a link in the show notes that you can click on and it'll take you right to my coaching website. And thanks for listening.